We respectfully acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land on which we record this podcast, and recognise their continuing connection to the lands, waters, and community. We pay our respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to the elders past, present, and emerging. Hello and welcome to this podcast. I'm Dom Hennequin and I'm here with two of my favourite film buffs in the world. It's Amy Bryans and it's Curtis Mason. That's Amy. Say hello,
yes,
Amy.
I'm Amy. Hi. Hi, Jim.
And this is Curtis.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, you might get them confused if you're just listening.
Curtis and Amy.
Curtis and Amy.
Oh, and Dom.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Now, we've been wanting to do some sort of a podcast on film together for, I don't know, like...
Years.
10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
And we're finally here today doing it. How do you feel?
Nervous.
Yeah.
Shy.
Nervous?
As always.
Shy?
Yeah. Bashful.
Yeah. It sounds like it. You should come a little closer to the mic, I reckon. What about you, Curtis?
It feels great. I mean, this is something we've been talking about for so long, and I think so many times we had planned to do it, and then big events had happened, lockdowns had happened. There were just so many things that were holding us back, and now we're finally here in probably as much of a lackluster year for cinema as I can remember. Whereas I think had we started last year, we might have had a bit more to talk about. But it's always exciting to see what's been nominated and what's considered the creme de la creme, I guess.
Like last year, we still had films that had started production so long ago. Yeah. And there were some that were delayed to this year.
Absolutely. Everyone
thinking like, COVID and all that will be done by then. But this year it's been like, still happening.
Yeah, that's right.
A few surprises left.
Yeah.
And people have, studios have finally released films, even like West Side Story and stuff, being like, finally, let's just do it and release it. And it's kind of flopped.
Yeah.
So
I feel like when there's talk of a Marvel film being nominated potentially for Best Picture, I think that's a pretty big sign
Slim
that
pickings.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. What Marvel film is Spider-Man?
Sony and Disney are campaigning for Spider-Man to get nominated for Best Picture. Yeah. And I mean, their argument is that it's the highest grossing film of any films that have been released over the past 2 years. And so they're like, well, what do you consider?
How do you ignore that?
Yeah. What do you consider a Best Picture? That's people going to the movies, supporting this very industry that we love to talk about, that we love to enjoy.
It's the age-old debate with the Oscars, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it about the populace and what's doing well, or is it about what the critics, approve of, and how relatable does the Oscars need to be for it to be successful? Do they need to be relatable? Do they need to be mainstream? Obviously, their ratings.
Do they need to be enjoyable?
Yeah.
Which oftentimes they're not. As Ethan Hawke once said, though, in regards to Spider-Man and Marvel, the money was the reward for those films.
Yeah.
That was the Oscar.
Yeah, we've already won.
Yeah. Remember the most popular film debate a couple of years ago at the Oscars?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It's not the Logies.
There once was a time, though. There once was a time when the popular films got nominated.
Oh, absolutely.
And won.
Yeah, but you look at those films now and they hold up. You look at those old classics that would have been the ones raking in those huge amounts of cash. And you watch them now and people are like, wow, what a masterpiece of filmmaking.
Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, today we're talking about Dune.
Popular and critically.
It's
actually one that's both.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, popular by, COVID cinema standards, I guess, but still pretty good showing at the box office. So this is a film starring Timothée Chalamet, or Amy as you call him, Tim
Tam Chardonnay.
Tim Chardonnay. He's really going from strength to strength. He's in 70 films this season.
He's in everything.
He's the one.
Yeah. He's Spider-Man, right?
Actually, in a multiverse, I think he is.
Yeah.
Every actor that could have been Spider-Man, is there. But he's in this. This is an all-star cast, really. Like,
It's
there's
insane.
so many actors in this. Basically, like, we saw this a while ago together, actually, and I'd sort of forgotten how many people, like how many huge names, were in this. But it's directed by Denis Villeneuve. Villeneuve.
Yes.
Curtis is definitely going to be our pronunciation authority on this show, I feel.
Potentially.
Yeah. He's a bit of an accent snob.
It's directed by Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
And
I can just translate.
And honestly, he seems to be doing some big things at the moment. Good on him. But yeah, he's obviously done Arrival, Blade Runner 2021?
2049.
2049.
Yeah.
And he's got a particular style. This is they've tried to adapt Dune before.
Yes.
It's a series of books, isn't it? Or it's one. The first one is sort of like one massive book.
Well, yeah, it started off as just
The one.
Frank Herbert wrote the one. Yeah, I don't think he intended it to be a whole series. And it had a bit of commentary. Someone told me about the commentary. We can go into this in more detail, but
what's the setup? What's the setup of it?
Well, sorry, I hadn't prepared myself mentally for
Let's all think about the setup.
Yeah.
The setup of Dune?
Yeah, the setup of Dune.
As in what it's about, or
As
just
in
the
what-
context of it
what's
coming
going
around?
on, what it's
Yeah.
about.
Right. So
Spice
it was
market.
it was a huge like science fiction phenomenon in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like it was
60s.
I thought it was the 80s.
No, 60s.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
the
what was the
book.
as well?
No,
The
the
book.
book.
Oh, so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
talking
Well,
about
that's-
when
Oh, you
first.
mean the what's his name adaptation?
The David Lynch one.
Yeah.
That was the 80s.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
80s.
I thought
Yeah.
the books were in the 80s as well. You know,
No,
we
60s.
do our research here. Jono, our producer, is just going to find out whether the books. But yeah, it
No.
sounds like
So the
they're in
books of the 60s. That was sort of what inspired Star Wars and 2001: A Space Odyssey. Took a few things from Dune. Anything that had that sort of houses, and it was all obviously a bit of a run on from the Lord of the Rings. Tolkien sort of set up that fantasy,
The epic fantasy.
Yeah, the epic fantasy, and Herbert ran with it, and it borrows heavily from Shakespeare. From what my understanding is.
And would you classify this film, I guess, by the books as well, like sci-fi or fantasy? Or
Sci-fi.
both.
Yeah,
personally.
sci-fi. Both. Yeah, both. Yeah, I'd say both.
Both?
Yeah,
Both?
I'd say so.
Both.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would the difference be there? Space?
Space.
Yeah.
Space?
Yeah.
Space, the different creatures, the different spacecraft, the different. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So a sci-fi film. Anyway, they tried to adapt it in the 80s. David Lynch did it, but they tried to do... Here they're doing... This is like an opening chapter, essentially.
Yeah.
And it was still 2.5 hours long in the 2021 version.
That's right.
David Lynch...
Condensed everything.
It's a kind of epic story of the backstory of that film, but they tried to condense the entire thing into one film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
right.
it completely kind of tanked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some interesting. I of course haven't seen it. Not of course, but I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
No. I've seen a lot of YouTube.
It doesn't look like
kind of-
fun.
Yeah.
No.
I purposefully didn't see it so as not to taint my expectations of this new adaptation.
Yeah.
Because I did read the book. I bought a bookmark the other day, and it said something along the lines of don't judge a book by its movie, which I'm very guilty of. So I'll hear about a movie being adapted from a book, and then I'll buy the book and just like absolutely throw myself into it.
That's very good of you.
Well,
That is how you tend to read.
yeah, definitely.
Because you're a cinephile first.
Yes,
above all else.
absolutely, 100%. Yeah. So I heard that Dune was coming out, and I love Denis' previous work, and so I just completely obliterated the book over COVID, and I loved it. It was a really interesting read. A lot of people struggle with it, I think, because there is so much world building in it.
Yeah.
And there's literally a glossary, and I had to turn back and forth to the glossary.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, because there's not much exposition. He writes as though you know. Yeah.
Which is very Tolkien.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, even though, you know, now we have this new, I think, great movie versus the old, very dated one that was, you know, questionable in its time, let alone now. At the time, I do know that for a lot of nerds who love sci-fi books and film, Dune was very popular in the 80s, partially because that film, no matter what it is now, it did actually reignite some interest in that series.
Interesting.
Yeah, it had a big...
Even if people hated it.
Yeah.
That were like, I need to read the book to figure out what went wrong here.
There was a bit of an 80s craze around Dune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was that during that time of like, you had Star Wars, you had all these
Totally.
like other things. So what do we think of the film? So this is what that film, you know, 2021's version had to overcome.
Yeah.
It's sort of, you know, the curse of the first Dune film.
Mm.
What did we think of it? Because it was still, you know, it took the first kind of half of the book or something, and it was still 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
How did we feel watching it, and you know, did it drag? You know, what do we think?
Can we go in order of the amount of the book we've read? Mm-hmm. So going down the list of Curtis who's finished it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Me, I've read half the book. and
me,
I'm assuming you've read none of it.
Not sure what books are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, start with me.
Let's start with the expert.
Look, I think as I sort of explained how I read books and why I do it, it's generally because there's an adaptation coming out. So I've always got this level of expectation, keeping in mind as well that I love Denis' work and I love the cinematography that he doesn't necessarily create. You know, he doesn't create that by himself, but what he demands of his cinematographers and of his camera operators to create those epic landscapes and that darkness and that just overall mood. I love everything that he does, that he puts on screen. So I just had this going in there. I had this high level of expectation, and to me, how I can describe it is it completely blew my expectations out of the water because I didn't really know what to expect. And to be honest, the first time I saw it, it wasn't what I expected it would be. So I was wondering to myself, am I actually enjoying this? But then I went and rewatched it again because I knew that I had to. Because a lot of the time I wasn't really processing what was going on. I was just going, oh, you know, that's different to what happened here and blah, blah, blah. So on second watch, I thought it's an absolute bloody masterpiece. And I think that it's on one of my top lists of films ever made. I think it's a marvel.
All right. So it's like 5 iPods out of 5 iPods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy.
Yeah. So I went in with the expectation of having read sort of the first third of the book. Yeah. And then stopped, not because I wasn't enjoying it, but I don't know, probably just had some sort of mental breakdown that distracted me from it. I'll finish it one day. So yeah, I'd read a bit of it, and I've also, you know, I'm a millennial. I grew up when Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings were at their peak, right? And, you know, even to lesser effect, but still to some, you know, then there was, you know, the Twilight and the Hunger Games. Like, we truly are the generation of like epic fantasy franchises. And Lord of the Rings, as a matter of fact, is probably my favourite film series ever. They're my favourite. So I went in with a bit of that in the back of my head and also a bit of the book in my head. And at first, I'd say probably for the first half an hour or so, I struggled. I felt like I was watching part film trailer, you know, lots of trailer-esque shots. And then I was also just struggling to sort of understand what was happening, to be honest. Even though I have read some of it, I was still struggling to piece together what was going on. But what ended up happening is just due to the really successful storytelling that was on display, it did suddenly all fit for me. And suddenly I was totally invested. And what impressed me was it was done in a way where the audience wasn't being patronized or spoon-fed. Like, you actually did have to sit up and actually really take it in. And I absolutely, I'm the same as Curtis. I loved it. I loved it so much. And what I loved about it, going back to what I said earlier about we're the generation that's grown up with these epic fantasy franchises, what is left to do? You know, we've had, this kind of had a little bit of everything in it. You know, it had a bit of the Lord of the Rings thing with, you know, the politics and, you know, the epic fantasy vibe. It had the sort of classic unwilling fantasy hero, chosen one, you know, Harry Potter, you know, Luke Skywalker thing. It had the Star Wars thing in space. You know, it had the Game of Thrones politics. Like, I was going, what is left to do? How is this going to feel new? How is this going to feel refreshing? How is this going to feel like something different than what's been consistently rammed down our throats since, Lord of the Rings.
Quick succession of years, basically.
Yeah, like how can it possibly have something to add to this very, very overdone genre? And to me, it actually honestly did. I felt like I was watching something new. And not only is that an achievement in the context of, epic fantasy sci-fi films, that's just an achievement in cinema at the moment.
Yeah.
We're in the world of remakes and, adaptions and all of that.
Superhero films.
Yeah, cramming as many Marvel heroes into one film as possible.
Yeah.
Every single Disney film,
Crossovers
film is a remake or an adaptation of something. Like, I just feel like I haven't seen something that felt fresh in a genre that is hard to feel fresh in forever. And
Yeah.
It was
It's interesting
awesome.
what you say about like the feeling of the first part of it, like that you might have been watching a film trailer or something, because in the film, like, and I think I don't know how it was though, having read the book though, I don't know whether it would be less enjoyable trying to think, oh God, have they figured it out or are they going to, but yeah, generally when I go and see a film and I have no real kind of idea fully what it's about, I like to go in fresh, but I go through a bit of a journey in the first part of the film, struggling to trust the director, but knowing I just need to trust the director.
Yeah.
Like just go in, shut up, watch. They're going to take care of you for the next, 2 hours and 30 minutes. And you just got to trust that you'll understand it all. And that's how I was feeling for maybe the first hour. It was just like, oh my God, did I miss something? Am I going to get, have I got this? Is this going to make sense to me?
Yes.
I think I'm following. But the feeling when I look back at it now of the whole experience of the film was really satisfied.
Yeah.
It was certainly slow, and during that kind of like insecurity throughout a lot of the film, feeling like, is this going to deliver? Are we going to get there? How's everyone else feeling? I'm very self-conscious, but by the end of it, I was like, no, that was good. That set up everything I need to know about this, and I want to know what's next.
Yeah.
And I think that was the purpose of this film, and
That's
very brave in the way that it's been set up, in that a sequel at that point hadn't been
not
lighted.
confirmed at all. And if it was a commercial failure, people would have hated it because there's no resolution. There's nothing.
That whole film is just setting up.
It's expensive setup.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Impressive
this
setup.
first podcast was just me setting up the mics, plugging them in, looking at the scenes, doing the lighting.
Come back next time.
Great. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, exactly. It was all done. I sat down. I was like, see you next week. That would be that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which would be very satisfying, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did we think? What were the highlights of it? Obviously, it's like there's such
Yes.
scale to the world and stuff, the costumes, and not too much CGI.
That
Very
is,
selective.
to me, that is the highlight.
This nerd.
I
Tech can make or break.
Not stand when I notice the CGI, and I'd have to say that Dune is probably one of the first films that I've ever just taken my hand off the wheel and thought to myself, the suspension of disbelief is there. I'm completely convinced that they're on a spacecraft right now. I'm completely convinced that that's a giant sandworm coming out of the spice.
You could almost smell it. You could almost feel it.
Yes.
That's when I know with a film that it's like, I think I know what those walls would feel like, or I think I know what it would sound like in here. Or I think they're getting it just like a proper sense of when I watch a
It was
Marvel
a very sensory film.
like you could reveal all the layers of CGI going back, and you'd be here. They shot it here. I'm pretty sure the latest Spider-Man, it all looks so fake. And
absolutely.
you're really aware of it the whole time.
Yeah.
But this was really you could feel it.
It didn't. It felt like you couldn't just turn on Snapchat and use a filter to make it look like you were in a movie.
What would the Dune filter be?
A sandworm film.
And then,
Or just Zendaya,
and then
Blue eye.
just the blue eye.
the throat singing of the Harkonnens when it's like
No.
You in a sludge bath. Kill them all.
the black worm rising. what's his name? Bloody Josh Brolin just rising out of his seat.
Yeah.
Timothy Champagne.
Tenfold champagne.
Yeah. So yeah, that for me is like the number one highlight is, and I was reading a little bit on this as to how it looked so real, and I think it's not only, I mean, there's dedication, right? Because you see some tech demos and they just look so creative and so good with CGI, and you're like, oh, we've come so far in CGI, and then you'll go and see Spider-Man, and it like you can literally see the glow of the green screen around the character, and they're like, it's like, did you do this on Zoom?
Did
like,
they Photoshop every frame of this? What's going on?
Yeah, I don't even think like this person, like they just took a 3D model and used someone else's voice, like an impersonator, but no. So there was the dedication of Denis' vision. I think he would have instilled that in every single person working on the film. But it wasn't only that.
To an exhaustive degree.
Oh,
like the janitor
absolutely.
was like, you don't understand.
Absolutely.
He's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know why he's Spanish. I'm French.
Yes,
You're the only one who has the
can't do
authority
it.
here.
Yeah.
But the number one thing was, I think that they actually used a lot of real backgrounds, and they used a lot of real settings, and they shot in the desert. I think they filmed in Jordan. I'm fairly certain they filmed a lot of it in Jordan and parts of the Middle East, where they actually do have huge sand dunes. And they tried to build as many models as they could, and they tried to...
Jurassic Park, hey?
Yeah, what's that thing called? Yes, exactly, Jurassic Park.
How old is Jurassic Park?
What's that thing called where there's the technique, and our producer Jono is going to look it up for us, but it's when you put one object in front of another object that's sort of a lot further back in the background, and it's scaling. It's all to do with scaling.
So, Gandalf and Frodo in the wagon at the start of the first.
So there was a lot of that
playing with that
perspective and scaling, and that's how they made these things feel so huge, like these buildings.
Like I just keep thinking of like when the spacecraft or whatever like lands on and you see the two kind of armies or whatever, the two parties lined up, and it just looks massive. Like it just looks, that's very Denis Villeneuve, like that sweeping landscape shot of where you're seeing so much.
Forced perspective.
Forced perspective.
I was 50% of the way there.
Johnny White.
I'm taking partial credit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of my
Did you
more
say
charming
that, though?
personalities. I said perspective.
Yeah, forced perspective.
Yeah,
Did you
I
say
actually
forced
did.
perspective?
No, she didn't
Yeah.
say forced, but
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get half a point for Amy.
Yeah.
Sure.
A nomination for Amy.
Donno's not happy. Does anyone know another producer? Because we might need one next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forced perspective.
Yeah.
But is there something about like the set dressing and the costumes and all of it coming together?
Yeah.
Like, what did you think about the costumes? Because I thought they were quite different to what I have seen over the past, like, I don't know.
Well, can you elaborate on that?
There was something a little bit like modern, but also you could believe that this was a million years ago.
Sure.
Just something really interesting, and yet it wasn't too much.
Yeah, it wasn't.
There wasn't heaps of costumes.
Yeah, it wasn't like Mad Max, like post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, where's he plugged into? It wasn't too in your face. Like it wasn't screaming at you, but you. Yeah, in fact, let's do an episode on that.
I can't get that thought out of my head now. Where is he plugged into? How can I hear him in the desert?
And that doesn't look safe.
Towards
as well.
the end of the film,
He's really riffing quite well on that guitar. For someone
he
who
goes
might
flying,
die.
and you can see all these cords attached to him, like he's jacked into them.
I did think about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Well, that's good filmmaking.
Little film tidbit. The guitarist is actually an Australian musical theatre performer.
Oh.
There you go.
Iota. He played Frankenfurter
Yeah,
in Rocky Horror Picture Show in
saw him.
2000 and I want to say
You know John Wood from
Seven?
Wood from
Yeah.
Blue Heelers is in it as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Just
so-
come over the top of my fact.
It was
Yeah.
John Howard.
John.
Oh, well. Yeah. I guess
John
you got
Howard.
halfway-
Yeah,
John
John
Howard.
Howard.
You
Yeah.
got halfway there,
Okay.
John.
Well, we want to sit here.
Not Wood, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
It's half a point to you, Dom.
John Howard.
Okay, well,
The old Prime Minister's in it.
How the turntables, something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Dune, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that the costumes had some video game inspiration.
Yeah.
It gave me
Manga.
a little bit of Assassin's Creed
Oh,
at
yeah,
times.
Yeah.
And often games do play with time periods. Like they don't make it. They Curtis, you're a big gamer. Like they set games in ambiguous times.
Yeah.
They mix a lot of the old with the new, which is literally Assassin's Creed, which is a game where it's futuristic, but the lead character goes back into these iconic periods of history.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I think that Dune has been around for so long, and it's had so many. It's been adapted into a graphic novel. It's had the film adaptation back in the 80s. It's had the miniseries back in either the late 90s or the early 2000s with James McAvoy. There have been so many iterations of Dune. I think there was already a lot of inspiration and sort of source material in terms of like the still suit and everything like that. I think that there are things that are sort of set in stone as to what they do look like the
Some
little
references.
like the little breathing piece that they put into their nose. Like that looks pretty similar from what I've seen in the 1984 film. So there's those sorts of references that have been around for quite a long time that I guess were. Back then, they would have just been based on budget and based on what was available to them. But those things have become so iconic that they've had to they've had to include them, but also adapt them into the modern age and into the camera style and the mood that Denis likes to
evoke.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the story, like a bit of the story of this film and where we think it kind of shone and maybe areas where maybe not so much.
Yeah.
So, Amy, what did you think? What do you think's going on in this film? What did you take in?
Yeah, sure. So I obviously previously mentioned that I did sort of, struggle along a little bit through the first 30 minutes or so. And obviously I saw it with the two of you.
Yes.
But we did also see it with a few other friends. And the friend sitting next to me had never seen Timothée in any film. She'd never seen him. But she obviously knew about the hype around him because she's alive on the earth at the moment.
Yeah.
She knows how popular
She's
he
got
is.
gay friends.
So yeah. But she's also... I hope she's not going to listen to this, but sorry, love you in advance if she is. But she's a bit of a cynic. Like she's always ready to dislike something if it's popular. So, yeah.
Yeah, welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one. Yeah. So, for the first sort of 20 minutes or so, she's sort of sitting next to me going, oh, I don't get it with him so far. She's going, I don't get him. And I'm sitting there going, well, part of me is going, oh, this movie's a struggle. I don't know if this is the film that's going to win her over on him. But then the other half of me was saying to her, just keep watching. Just give him some time.
Yeah.
And then it was, the iconic, moment in the earlier part of the story where Paul has to put his hand in the box.
The gom jabber.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
He has to put his hand
Absolutely.
into pain, what's in the box. What's in the box?
Hey, what's in the box?
What's in the box? Gwyneth Paltrow's head. No. So he has to put...
Oh, sorry, we're spoiling. Yeah, just a general umbrella spoilers.
Yes.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Seven by David Fincher yet, spoilers, but also why are you listening to this podcast if you haven't seen Seven yet? Anyway, so puts the hand in the box of pain and,
Act
here
like
comes...
you've never acted before.
Yeah, well, here comes the Inception music just suddenly hits and, Tim Tam Chardonnay looks up into the eyes of the woman and it's like there is our main character.
Yeah.
There is our hero. And I, in that moment, went, oh, here's the movie. And my friend next to me, she turned to me and went, okay, I get it. So that was a really cool moment for me. And I think reflective of what was one of the main reasons the film is so successful, not just Tim Tam himself, but the whole cast is just stellar.
Really good actors.
Yeah. And, I guess it's kind of the same thing as, what the Lord of the Rings film trilogy managed to do with those books is it affirmed that if you want to sell, a nerdy fantasy sci-fi franchise to a mainstream audience, it has to have an emotional heart with characters that you can become invested in. And I think that the whole cast was very successful in that sense.
Yep.
Ferdy?
Really classy.
So just to give a bit of a general overview of the movie itself, I mean, to me, what Dune represents is just power, a power struggle, and what power means to different people. and how people can wield that power, and how people can oppress with power, and how people can get their way with power. It's everyone's got their own power dynamic, and it's really interesting to see how that's used. So obviously, it's all about the struggle of who's the power struggle of who's looking after the spice on the planet Arrakis, which is Dune, and it's all about how the native inhabitants are going to get treated now that this new power has been forced upon their land, and what will happen after this oppressive force has left. So I just found that dynamic really interesting to watch, just in terms of how you can really flip it and really look into the dynamics, and I guess in a sense of how people are reacting to their surroundings and anything that's happening day to day. And there are so many different layers to this film that, you know, people say it's anti-capitalism. People say it's anti, fossil fuels, and it's all a bit of an analogy for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so I love watching that all play out, and then thinking deeper into what it actually means, and then, I mean, putting it together so beautifully like Denis did. I think it's really really interesting.
That's great, because power as a theme, it's often really core in a fantasy or a sci-fi story, and not just power, but more specifically that idea of power that is granted, so power that is given, versus inherent power, power within you. And often what happens, and it happens with Paul, the main character, is he has granted power, that he's unwilling and afraid to take, which is, inheriting, the throne and living up to his father and his grandfather. But then he also has that inherent power, which is the power of, his mother's, is it a tribe, or, his
Bene Gesserit.
Yeah. And he's struggling with those two things. And you see towards the end of the first film, this sort of mini character arc for Paul, in which he finally, he proves himself to that small, group of, desert dwellers.
Yeah, the Fremen.
Using a little bit of his granted power and his inherent power.
Yeah.
But it's like that in the desert too. The what are they called?
The sandworms?
Yeah, no, the tribe that's on...
The Fremen.
The Fremen. So the Fremen have inherent power.
Yeah.
They talk about it throughout the film constantly. No matter who comes here and tries to take our spice, no matter who is dominating us, we will always know this land and how to survive here, and this will always be ours. So it's a great theme, and I agree, and I think they do a really good job of it.
A couple of things I want to talk about before we run out of time. The worm.
The worm.
Just FYI, this worm
Have to talk about the worm in the room.
It really, yes, it really. But the worm and the villain, like the main Stellan Skarsgård as the villain,
big bad.
They're two things that we see. Talking about Marvel films, they're two things that we see. There's no shortage of what's meant to be those things in all these other films, but very rarely, especially in CGI world today, is it pulled off in a way that is genuinely. Can genuinely affect you.
I'm getting shivers thinking about the worm.
It was one of the only things in that film that was clearly kind of CGI, but it felt like the stakes were high.
Yeah.
They didn't show it
Yeah.
all together all that much, and when they did show it, it was really, really effective and really, really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
And
going
that
to
could
need a
have
bigger
been
boat.
terrible.
Yeah.
It could have been awful.
But it wasn't.
No, but also Stellan Skarsgård. It's been a while since I've been truly baffled
Unsettled.
and really
Grossed
unsettled
out.
by a villain.
Yeah.
Really, really oh my God, that is really making, me shiver.
off-putting. Yeah.
So I thought that those two things were just really, really well done and really effective.
Absolutely.
I agree. I have not felt scared of a movie monster like the worm since I was young. Really, it actually made me feel like I haven't, the older you get, the harder it is to sort of surprise yourself. I haven't felt like that watching a movie since I was little. Like, genuinely, every time they were on the sand, get off the fucking sand.
Yeah.
Go!
The stakes.
Even though I knew the scene was not going to have a worm in it, I still wanted them off the sand.
Yeah.
No matter what. I'm like, go!
Yeah, as someone who hadn't read the book before,
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my God. god,
Yeah.
every single time.
Every time.
Every single time. It was really well done.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go through like a quick fire checklist of some of the performances here, and let's just like quickly say what first comes to our mind. Timothée Chalamet.
Perfect.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Never before seen.
Yeah, I think to pick up on your point, like he's playing a role that is not going to be like the whole film isn't going to be the most actiest, Oscar-iest, film. It's not sort of what it is, but yet he still had his moments, and he still did, and there wasn't a lot of dialogue really when you think about it.
No, there really
this is a film that needed to explain a lot to us, but like not a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
Just lots of kind of showing, very slow. So I thought he was really well cast. Oscar Isaac.
I mean, yeah,
Babe.
he fits the role perfectly. In the book, are we spoiling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
I guess big
blanket,
spoiler alert.
Blanket for the whole series.
He dies as quickly. Oh, Jono, sorry. He dies as quickly in.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, sorry.
well, we said spoiler alert.
Well,
He dies as quickly in the movie as he does in the book, and I think then I really enjoy like the after death exposition of his character, and the more you learn about him after he's actually died, and it's all through people talking about him. You don't really see that in.
Rebecca Ferguson.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really warm, but really, really strong and consistent, calm, focused. Like, she's like, other than Tim Tam himself, of course, I think it's probably emotionally the second most important character in the story.
Yes.
For what I've seen so far.
Also interesting though, she does remain very aloof. There's one particular scene where he says, "Can you promise me that you won't do this?" I can't remember what it was. And she says, "Yes, of course." And he says, "I'm not asking you. I'm asking the Bene Gesserit," which is the faith that she follows. And she sort of
Is this Oscar Isaac asking? her?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she sort of hesitates.
She's like, zonk.
And she manages to pull that off. You don't really know where she stands. She manages to pull that off throughout the whole film.
Yeah. Lots of, here we go, a bit of a wank, but lots of Oedipal, like.
Yeah.
between Her and Tim Tam.
Yeah. When they get
Goodness.
changed
do a whole
into their
podcast
still
on
suits
Oedipal.
and they're kind of looking at each other.
Yeah.
What was that?
We can do a whole podcast on like the
100%.
Oedipus complex
Yeah.
in film.
Yeah.
It's my favourite
We'll
thing in
just
the world.
take every snobby thing that, we'll do
Yeah.
a whole podcast on juxtaposing.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was in
fine.
it. Zendaya.
Yeah, she was great.
Starring Zendaya.
Try and get all
Sit
the
for 5
Gen
minutes.
Zs to come along. Yeah.
I mean, it's just so funny looking at her presence in the trailers versus her role in the film.
Yeah.
100%.
All of her lines are in the trailer, I swear.
Yeah.
Does she have a bigger? She has
It's
a bigger
funny
part to
because
play.
it's a very pronounced role in the book
yeah.
as a
Yeah.
whole, and then it's just a shame that she's not really introduced all that much.
Will it be there? She'll be more present in the second
Absolutely.
film. So
Yeah.
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 So that's all right. Jason Momoa.
Yeah, great.
Just,
Yeah.
Lovable.
Just being general.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa.
Yeah.
I like.
being-
What a brother.
just being
I'd love to have a
lovable.
brother like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's got like nice uncle
Type of
vibes.
brother. David Bautista.
Yeah.
Bautista.
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah. I can't remember what he did in this.
He was the lead assassin, like the leader of the
yeah.
the Barons.
Our producer Jono.
He's lost
Okay,
it.
let's just keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Stellan Skarsgård.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And Javier Bardem.
Yeah, I mean, second
He
film.
was certainly in it.
Second film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was good.
Oh,
He-
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
liked him in this. Well, I think that this is going to be probably like a score. That's like a huge achievement. It's Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
I think that will win them an Oscar.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
gotta.
This film will win
Yeah.
at least that.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't he stolen from
Tenet.
from Tenet? Yeah.
Yeah.
For this,
Yes.
which brings me peace.
Yeah, but the soundtrack for Tenet was.
It was
amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Like Hans Zimmer, in my opinion, really ruined film trailers for a minute there.
Yeah.
Like a big, like Dark Knight. Like,
Yeah.
but like this was fantastic and was as much a part of the film as
Yeah.
anything else that was
Yeah.
said, written, or seen in it. So I thought
Yeah.
it was pretty good.
Yeah, it probably will win.
Probably sound,
Yeah.
maybe visual effects,
Cinematography potentially as well.
yeah. And I think it'll probably be up for Best Picture.
I'd say so. Yeah, I would definitely say
I don't
so.
think it will win.
It won't win.
I think it would be like iconic beyond belief if a epic fantasy sci-fi film
Oh, yeah.
won Best Picture. It hasn't happened since, I know it keeps being said, but I don't think it's happened since Return of the King, like the third
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
film. It's not going to happen, but you know, it's fun to entertain the thought.
Yeah.
A girl can dream.
Yeah, a gal can dream.
All right, we're back now with a part of the show that's going to be here every week at the end of the show, and it's going to be hosted by Curtis. Curtis, what have you got for us?
I have a few quiz questions for you based
God.
around movie trivia, considering this is a movie podcast.
I've only seen Disney films. Am I going to be okay?
You've seen Marvel, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's
I really haven't. In fact, I'd like to go through all of the Marvel series with you two, but yeah, what have you got for us?
So, okay, all right. Do you want me to just jump straight into it?
So this is a quiz.
My dignity, my ego was on the line.
Yep, absolutely.
The thought of losing to Dom this publicly.
I'll be terrible. I
panic under the pressure of having to answer something I know the answer to.
Oh, good.
All right. So, which movie earned the most nominations without winning any? This is Oscars.
Oh, this is not multiple choice. This is
No.
Okay. La La Land.
No.
Is it something we've talked about today?
No, but a director of another film that we've talked about today.
Okay. King Kong.
No, okay, so Herbert Ross's The Turning Point. I had never heard of it. But 1977. And these two films tying for the most nominations earned without winning. Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple from 1985. They were both nominated for 11 Oscars and failed to win a single Oscar. So, yeah.
I had it in my head that,
crazy.
Color Purple had won a few. Acting awards.
No,
No.
they didn't win any acting awards. I know that. Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well.
Which is the only franchise to win Best Picture twice?
The Godfather.
Correct. Godfather
work.
Part 1 and 2.
Two.
Part 3 was also nominated in 1990.
I haven't even watched that.
But it
Yeah.
lost out to the trash film Dances with Wolves.
What a
that won
masterpiece.
in a year that should have gone to Goodfellas.
Goodfellas lost that year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That ain't good.
No.
That's bad, fellas.
That's.
I'm sorry.
Should we add in some laughs there? Because
Do we let Jono do a bonus buzz in if me and Dom can't get it?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I'm looking them all up.
All right. Who has won? Is it whom or who? Who?
It's who
Whoomst.
and it's whom if you're just an
It's
awful
one.
person.
Who?
It's whost. Whost.
Whomst.
Whitney Houston. We can't talk about her.
We need to cut that out. Save it for the other podcast.
Who has won Best Actress
Meryl
most?
Streep.
Who has won Best Actress most?
Oh. Like,
Best Actress.
Like most.
Who has won the title of Best Actress most times?
Not Meryl Streep.
Jono's trying to signal to
No,
the
don't.
Best actress.
Best Actress, not
Oh.
supporting, just Best Actress.
Katharine Hepburn.
Correct.
Hey.
Katharine Hepburn has won 4 times for Morning Glory, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The Lion in Winter, and On Golden Pond. Meryl Streep leads the nominations with 21 nominations and 3 wins. 21
Yeah.
nominations for Best Actress.
But Meryl's won. So she's won 2 Best Actress and 1 supporting. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kramer versus Kramer.
Do I get a pity point for half? You know.
I
Sophie's
did
Choice.
clarify it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Iron Lady. The Iron Lady.
Yeah.
What's her famous line from the Iron Lady? It's from Drag Race as well.
The
The lady will not.
Is not for turning.
Yeah.
Let's see
Thank you, John.
Jono
Thank
White's
you.
performance of the Iron Lady.
Bring on Brexit.
And that's all for the
So,
movie quiz for this
I
week.
won?
Yeah, you won.
Oh my gosh.
Well done. Who
I've
would
got
you
so
like
many
to
people
thank?
to thank.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I guess.
And the music is playing you out.
Oh no.
Dun,
no.
dun, dun,
Not
dun,
again.
dun.
This brings to a close our very first episode.
Wow.
What a pleasure.
Wow. What an absolute delight.
It's been so lovely hanging out with you two for the last... Well, I mean, sorry, John. You're also here, but...
He's not here. Don't talk. Don't say anything. No, go on, say something.
No, it's fine.
No, go on. Say hello.
I'm shy.
No, go on.
I love
Thank you both for joining me. If you had to print a quote on a movie poster of this episode of this show, what do you think it would be? What would the critics say in your mind?
Considering my sitting position, I would say, here's to looking at you, Dom.
Wow.
I think it's what the critics would say about us.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what they would say too after watching Dom.
No, they'd say like Amy Bryans doesn't seem to be listening to full questions, but she's a delight.
I'd say something very, very American, very generic, like Dom, Amy, and Curtis hit it out of the park on their first attempt or something like that. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Or like the Rotten Tomatoes consensus. Let's say we got like a 70% for this. They'd be like, while all the parts are in place, the potential of the show leaves something to be desired and is yet to be seen. We're all looking forward to the sequel.
I don't know if that's going to make it into the...
What do they say on Letterboxd, maybe? I would say, my mind, it would say something like, like hilarious, but then it's taken from a bigger quote where it's like, this
they
is
try
so-
to be hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. And they fail miserably. Yeah, and I think that suits us. On that note, I think that's the end of this first episode of the podcast that currently doesn't really have a name, but if you've got a name that we should... Jono, you got a name? No. Okay. If you've got a name, maybe it should be called... What was that, Jono? No. If you've got a name, let us know in the comments. Maybe we'll know that someone listened.
What about just Spotlight?
After the hit
2012.
Yeah. What about hilariously bad? What about great
What about
sign-off jokes?
Aaron Sorkin's...
Aaron Sorkin's big ol' something completely not Sorkin-y
The big
at all.
old tabletop adventure or something.
Cowabunga.
Tabletop. It's a board game.
Yeah.
Sorkin's big old
Whack-a-mole.
Anyway, well, on that note, that's it for Aaron Sorkin's big ol'
Yeah.
Whack-a-mole.
Here's some Randy Newman to play us out.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see you next week from Dommy, Amy, and Curtis Mason. Until
I
next
don't want
time.
my last name on